My name is Simon Bennetts, and I'm the OWASP ZAP founder and project lead. As some of you may know, I now work at Stack.org, where we're building a developer-focused AppSec solution based on ZAP. This is a series of training sessions that I'm giving for folks at Stack.org, and these are just about the free open source version of ZAP. So some of them already know a lot about ZAP, but others haven't had a chance to delve into it in depth. So I'm going to start with the basics and then go into more detail. I'm giving these sessions live, so some of the people on the call may ask questions, but if you're watching it later online, then please just ask any questions you have in the comments section. This section is a very high-level intro, what ZAP is, where you can get it, how you can run it, and where you can get some more information. So, what is ZAP? ZAP is a tool for finding vulnerabilities in web applications. It's an OWASP flagship project, which means it's very robust and very highly regarded. Like all OWASP projects, it is completely free and open source. It is the world's most popular open source web application security tool, and it's quite possibly the most frequently run web application scanner in the world, and that includes all the commercial tools as well. It is what we call a dynamic application security testing tool, or DAST for short. That means it needs a running instance of your application for it to connect to and to attack. This compares with static application security testing tools, or SAS tools, or static analyzers, where these actually go to the source code and analyze that. I'm not going to get into the arguments about which is best. They find different things in different ways. So if you care about the security of your application, you really should be using both DAST and SAS tools. ZAP finds attacks custom applications. So it finds new vulnerabilities rather than trying to find existing vulnerabilities that are already known about. What I mean by that is there are some scanners out there which are focused on known applications. So they might detect that you're running WordPress and you have a particular version of a WordPress plugin that is known to be vulnerable. And it can then report that. These things are very useful, but they only work well for known applications and plugins for those applications. Most of you are probably creating custom web applications, and so it's quite possible that at the early stages, then nobody else outside of your organization will have actually tried testing that application. So if you run one of these tools that look for known vulnerabilities, then they will find nothing and might give you a false sense of security. ZAP tends not to look for these things. There are a few that we do detect, but in general, we're looking for new vulnerabilities. So ZAP will try and attack your application in the same way that a malicious attacker will do so. So it will be able to find vulnerabilities that you are not aware of and that no one else is potentially aware of either. So ZAP can be used manually or it can be completely automated. And in these sessions, I will kind of go through all of the options and explain how you can use ZAP in these different circumstances. So first, what we want to know now is how to get hold of ZAP. And hopefully you can now see Firefox with zaproxy.org. So this is our main website, and we got lots of information about ZAP and where you can download it from as well. So we have these big download now buttons. And so if you just click on those, then you'll see all the places where we can download ZAP from. So we have quite a few different options, as you'll see here. First of all, we have what we call the ZAP stable release. So ZAP, we release ZAP every 6 months or so, usually a couple of times a year. And the latest, the current version of ZAP is 2.90. We actually released this in January 2020, and we're very close to releasing ZAP 2.10. So if you're watching this later, then definitely come back to this site and make sure you've got the very latest version. So we have different installers and packages for Windows, Linux, Mac, and we've got cross-platform installers as well. These are pretty much all the same. There is some subtle differences. So the Mac installer actually includes Java because that's required. So ZAP does require Java 8 or later. And the only other difference here is the core cross-platform package, which is much smaller because it includes, or it doesn't include a whole load of the optional add-ons. And I'll explain all about the add-ons in a later session. But apart from the cross-platform package and the fact that the Mac installer has Java installed, these are pretty much all the same. They're just focused on the different architectures. And you can run, as long as you've got Java 8 on your whatever platform, then you will be able to run ZAP. We also have some Docker instances as well, so some Docker images, and I will go into these in much more detail in another session. We have this stable image, and it's the same software as in the standard installers, so that's currently 290. We have the bare image, which is analogous to the core cross-platform package, so it's just got the minimum essentials. Then we've got the weekly release, and this is released every week, usually on a Monday, sometimes on a Tuesday, depending how it goes. And then we've got the live release. So the live release is released anytime anybody commits any code to the ZAP code base. We will then get a new image of the live instance. We also have the weekly package available as a cross-platform package, so you can download that if you don't want to use Docker. We then have a set of options, so we've got Linux repos, Snapcraft, Homebrew, FlatHub. We try and make sure that ZAP is available in all of the different ways people want to install applications. The one thing we don't have on there is any information about the GitHub Actions, because you can't download those as such, but I will talk about those in a subsequent session. So once you've downloaded ZAP, you will potentially get an icon that you can run. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to the command line. And what I've got is I've just got the latest ZAP weekly release downloaded. So just do an ls and you can see that the files that are there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show the options that are available from the command line. And so I'm actually on a MacBook Pro, so I'll use the zap.sh. We've got a zap.bat for Windows, and in the main release we've got a zap.exe for Windows as well. But the Windows exe doesn't actually have the same command line options, so if you want to do anything unusual, or don't use any of the command line options on Windows, then use the zap.bat instead. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify a -dir option. You don't need to do this, but I've got quite a few different installations of ZAP, including the one I'm developing at the moment, and that would mess things up because I wouldn't be running the clean version of the install. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to specify this so that I know that I'm not picking up any other configuration. And then I'm just going to use the -h option, and what that will do is that will show us all of the command line arguments.
Hey, someone had a question about that.
Sure.
So when you're using the dir argument there, are you also including the home path with that, or is the home path need to separately be defined?
So the home path, you mean where we're picking up the ZAP jar from?
That's correct.
Yeah, no, that doesn't. So basically, what I'm doing, I did /zap.sh, so that's how I'm picking up the local one. So it doesn't change where I'm picking ZAP up from. All we do, we have this directory. If we do ls, we'll see that there's a work directory. And what we see, those are the files that the configuration files that ZAP uses. If I just do the same again and call it work2, the work2 directory didn't exist. And what we'll see is when that runs, we've got the whole set of files again. Because what ZAP does is it's got some configuration files, and this is where it stores them. Now, by default, we've got different directories on each of the different platforms, and I can show you where to find those in a bit because I can never remember offhand. But all we're doing is, so what I was doing is in particular making sure that I was picking up a clean config.xml file. That's the file where we got all of the, a whole load of ZAP configuration items, but there's a lot of other ZAP files that ZAP will use, including the log4j.properties, the plugins, policies, all these kind of things. So what I wanted to do is make sure I was using a local directory and not polluting it with all the other stuff that I've been playing around with. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. There's more question about the home path configuration option, but
sure.
I think that answered it. Thank you.
Cool. No problem. So we've got a whole load of different ways of running ZAP, or loads of different command line options anyway. And we've got a few different modes that you can run, or different ways you can run ZAP. And the easiest one, or the most obvious one, is if I just go back, and if I don't specify any other arguments, then what that will do is that will bring up the ZAP Desktop UI. And we'll see starting up here, and you can now see the ZAP Desktop UI. And we get this initial option saying about persisting the ZAP session, but I'm not going to go through the desktop UI now. That's going to be probably the very next session I do. But if you want to use ZAP interactively, then this is a really good place to start. So I will just close that. We then have the daemon option, and for that, you specify daemon, -daemon. And when I run that, you'll see ZAP goes through very much the same kind of thing, except we don't see the UI. We just have this message now saying ZAP is listening on localhost 8080. And obviously, there's no UI because it's running in daemon mode. We don't put it into the background by default, but obviously you can do that with your standard operating system command line options. So again, I'm going to go into this in a lot more detail when we start looking at automation. I will actually show you that you can do -port and give whatever you like. We can give the -host option as well. And then I will run that up. And what we should now find is that ZAP is on the port I'm actually expecting. And so rather than actually attacking ZAP itself, which obviously didn't work very well, I would just double check that that is now up. That's looking better. So if I now attack it, then we'll see we're now running the ZAP spider, and then we're going to start to run the active scan. So the idea of this is it just shows you it's actually very quick to start attacking an application. And I should point out that ZAP really is attacking this and it's doing bad things, so you should only attack applications that you have permission to test. Now, I'm going to stop it because this can take a little while, and I'm going to go through these kind of things in a lot more detail. But I'm now going to switch, close that, and I'm going to go back to the command line. So here what we're doing is we're running ZAP with still with the -dar test. I'm using the minus command option, and we've got this quick URL and quick progress. So if I now run that, then ZAP will actually essentially do the same thing. It will run the spider to explore the application, and then it will start doing the active scan, and you can actually see the progress there as well. So there's some fun things you can do with the command line, but it is still limited. So I'd kind of definitely recommend that, if you want to do automation around ZAP, it's much better to actually use the ZAP daemon and then control ZAP via the API. And that's something that I'm going to go through in a lot more detail. But there are some fun things you can do from the command line, one of which is you can actually run scripts. So you can specify a script, and ZAP will then run that script within ZAP, and it will then exit after doing that. So there are some kind of useful things that you can do there. I'm pretty sure the only scripting option available is a standalone script, because that's the only one that actually makes sense. So I will talk a lot, I'm going to do a session on scripting, maybe several sessions on scripting, and we can go into that and explain, and I can demo how that works as well. So you can see actually now that the active scan is completed, and we've got a whole load of, so this is an XML output of all of the findings. And if I just go, just have a look here, we will see that there are various, so we've got an option for outputting that to a file, so that doesn't get polluted with a load of the ZAP output as well. And there's some other fun options down here, which are basically for installing add-ons. That's particularly useful when you're automating ZAP. So that's something I will cover then. So those are the different ways you can actually get ZAP started. You can interact with ZAP in different ways. We actually have something called the heads-up display, which will be another session in itself. But really what I wanted to do now is just a quick run through the website and the kind of things you can get there, the information that's available. So we have, obviously you've seen the download page, and the home page kind of links to various useful things. So, but if I just go through the menu at the top, because that covers pretty much everything. So we've got a blog. There's loads of articles there. They go back quite a way. I think they go back down to 2012. So a lot of information there. We have a set of videos, got the ZAP in 10 series. These are short, kind of 10-minute videos, and the videos we're recording now will probably end up on that page as well. We have a lot of documentation. So we have a getting started guide. So this is a really good place if you're new to ZAP. This will kind of explain all about what ZAP is about and how you can use it. We have the desktop user guide. So the entire desktop user guide is available online, which is very useful when we need to link people to the answers. We have a lot of information about the API. So the ZAP API is very well documented. And again, that's a future session. And all of the alerts, so all of the alerts that ZAP can find, or at least by the standard built-in rules, they are all described here. We have a lot of information about Docker. Again, this is something I'm going to go through in the future. And very importantly, we have frequently asked questions. So there are certain questions that always seem to come up, and when a question's come up quite a few times, it'll get a new entry here. So we kind of often recommend, if you're having problems with ZAP or questions about ZAP, this is a really good place to start. And if you don't look there and you ask something online, then you may well get redirected to the relevant answer on here. And we've got a guide about zapping the OS top 10. We have a lot of sections, information about getting involved. Obviously, we're linking to the source code. We have a developer group. So there's a Google group which you can join and ask questions and discuss anything about developing ZAP. We've got a separate group for the HUD, the heads-up display. And ZAP is actually translated into a whole load of foreign languages. So if you want to help translate ZAP, there are a couple of crowd-in projects. We've got a contributing guide on how you can get involved with ZAP. And something I'm very proud of, we've had a lot of students been involved in ZAP. So we have a Student Hall of Fame and a lot of information there about all the things they've contributed. We do have a bug bounty. So if you find potential vulnerabilities in ZAP, then please report it to us via the bug bounty. And we've got information about supporters and third-party products and services. And support, the support section. So we've got getting started and the frequently asked questions again. We've got a user group. So yeah, get on there if you've got questions about using ZAP. We've got all of the linking to the issues, evangelists and IRC. So the ZAP core developers, we're on IRC, usually European office hours, but please jump on there if you've got any questions. And that is pretty much all the information that's available on the website. So have we got any questions from anyone who's here?
Can you tell us which languages you have API client support for?
And we will have separate ones for each of the APIs. So if I just put in API, then you'll see we've got Python, Java, .NET, Go, see on the docs, Node.js, Rust, PHP. Not all of those are absolutely up to date. So the Java one definitely is. The Python one definitely is, because we use that in the Docker repos. I'm not so sure about some of the others. Maybe we'd have to check on those. But yeah, the main ones that the Python and Java ones are definitely very well supported. The other ones I'd have to check. I haven't used them myself very much. Okay, and as I was here, I will go to the Zed Attack Proxy website and the wiki. There's loads more information here, but I said it's quite unstructured, or it's less structured, and some of it's out of date. So if we go down to the ZAP API, I think there probably be a section. It now points you back to here. So we did have there may still be something about how the different clients available, but I'd have to hunt around for those. So that's all I was going to cover in this session. The plan is for next time is to give introduction to the ZAP Desktop. And I think the ZAP Desktop is really worth knowing, even if you just want to automate ZAP. And that is because with the ZAP Desktop, you can actually see what's going on within ZAP. And sometimes it does take a little bit of effort to configure ZAP, particularly if you want to do it for automation. And so it's often easier to configure it with the desktop, and then you can export those configurations and use them within the API. So even if you want to just automate ZAP, then it's well worth learning about the desktop. It's great for diagnosing problems and just setting things up and seeing what's going on and learning a bit more about ZAP. So that is the next session planned. So thank you very much.